I checked my phone. White envelope delivered to our door for her. She wore a committee lanyard when leaving. She left without taking our car. My brother ran the carving knife while her phone kept lighting the rim of her glass. She wasn't reading me. She was reading something past me. I texted across the table, "Rideshare?" She didn't look up. Forks scraped. My sister-in-law asked about our week to fill the gap I left. 40 minutes later she finally sent, "Battery low." The screen never left her hand. She tipped it sideways, thumb moving fast. Small contradiction, left in the open. My brother's friend told the story too loud. She laughed over him and, without looking at me, said, "Who would want you anyway?" The table did that quick check of my face. I cut bread, passed the basket, let the pause stay where it landed. The raffle bowl made its lap. She pulled a slip, did a neat O, and the host pressed a white envelope into her palm. She palmed it under her coat with a shrug like it was nothing. I watched the coat settle. The host thanked sponsors, looked my way by habit of proximity, then moved on. I said, "We're leaving?" She didn't sit back. She lifted her chin toward the next table. She said, "I'm staying." Calendars shifted. The words were soft, but the chairs around us stilled. My brother asked if I needed his keys. I said no. She turned her shoulder to include the folks beside her, slid into their rhythm. Power slid her way with a small shift of chairs. I pushed my chair in, set my napkin flat, and told my brother I'd close the tab. He said, "She can catch a ride?" I said, "I know." Outside, the air had that clear bite. I waited by the curb and watched our reflection in the restaurant glass, mine fixed, hers moving between faces. 5 minutes became a text, 2 more. 10 more became, "You can go." I typed back, "I'm by the car." She came out 20 minutes later, coat closed, the corner of the white envelope tucked at her wrist. I opened the door. She slid in and said, "Tomorrow's stacked." I said, "Noted." We drove without the radio. She scrolled in the wash of passing lights. Battery low, still scrolling. I turned into our spot, cut the engine, carried the leftovers in. She set the envelope on the entry table for a beat, then tucked it again like it had a place it needed to be. She said, "Shower then emails." I said, "Lights off downstairs." We got home late. The house settled. Neighborhood quiet logged in. At 12:17 the doorbell hit, quick and certain. The porch camera clicked, and the hall light woke up by itself. I stood, let it ring once more, and walked to the door. Hall light snapped unbright. The neighbor's door stayed half-cracked, his eye in the gap. The courier lifted a scanner, said name, and held out a white envelope stamped policy meeting. I signed. I said, "She's asleep?" He said she asked for midnight delivery. The neighbor cleared his throat like he'd heard enough, and shut his door. I turned the envelope over once, clean corners, no return address. I set it on the entry table where she'd see it, not tucked, not hidden. Private beat. I didn't text, didn't wake her. The porch camera went dark. I let the house go quiet and took the couch. Morning framed out in the office kitchen. Microwave hummed. 2 coworkers poured coffee and glanced at my screen when it lit up. Her text, "Don't wait up, new committee slot." I typed, "Noted." No bubbles back. A coworker asked if everything was fine. I said, "Schedule's set?" He nodded like that answered it. I scrolled the district site with my thumb while their chatter moved to weekend plans. School board night showed open seating with overflow listed. I reserved too, my name on both. Private shift, quiet and simple. I took my coffee black, no small talk. Phone lit again with an auto calendar share from her, blocked out through Friday. Battery low would have made no sense here, but I let that land without comment. Contradiction logged, not announced. On the walk back, my boss stepped in, asked if I was making the board session. I said I'll be around. He said the district's tightening the grants. Shifting loyalties showed up in small ways. He kept pace with me down the hall instead of them. I didn't speed up. At lunch I went home, swapped shirts, and moved the white envelope from the entry table to the dining chair she uses. Visible, centered, not a message, a placement. I left a note card under it with the time only, 7 o'clock. No names. No apology. The door clicked behind me with a clean latch. Afternoon, she sent, running late, committee prep. I replied, seat reserved. Read receipt came and stayed unread on her side. I didn't send another line. Power leveled. Her calendar ran, mine held the room. At 6:30, I parked by the school and walked in through the side entrance. Parents and staff filled the lobby, badges and clipboards, eyes moving in short passes. I stood by the check-in table and watched for her, the envelope she'd claim, and who she'd stand next to first. I kept my hands light in my pockets and let the line form around me. She came through the side doors with a quick smile for the volunteers and the white envelope already in her hand. She held it up like a pass. The check-in lead scanned it and waved her through. Her friend slid in tight at her shoulder, then steered her a step off to the side, far enough to look private, close enough for me to hear. "He won't be home Friday," the friend said. "Mark can swing by early." Not for me to hear. My coffee cup stayed still in my hand. I watched the steam drift and didn't move. She clocked me, then the distance, then the friend. Her phone stayed face up, screen bright, the same battery icon she'd claimed was low at dinner. Contradiction sat there in plain light. She told the friend it's fine, we're aligned, and touched the envelope like a reminder. The stamp matched the midnight one. Policy meeting, same font, same tilt. I set the cup on the urn ledge and walked over until they had to decide who spoke first. The friend stepped back, palms open, harmless posture. I didn't look at her. Timeline changed? She tucked a strand behind her ear she doesn't usually touch. Trust me, all covered. Parents glanced, then went back to their clipboards. The volunteer smoothed the sign-in sheet, watching our shoes. I let the pause stay where it landed. She waited for something I wasn't handing out. Her friend cleared her throat and said they needed the room on the right. I nodded like she wasn't talking to me. Mark can swing by early had a shape now. My schedule in someone else's calendar. I didn't argue it in the lobby. I kept the exchange small. "You good?" she asked, voice soft, smile aimed for the onlookers. "Steady," I said. "Run your agenda." She exhaled in a way meant to read as relief. She put the envelope on the table for the volunteer to copy something, then took it back and held it against her chest like it could settle the story. She stepped closer than usual. I let the space stay. Her phone buzzed. She checked it without thinking, quick eyes, then put it face down and told me we'll debrief after. The friend took that as a cue and moved toward the meeting doors. Shifting loyalties had a visible route. Friend first, committee next, me last in line. I didn't follow. Power tilted without a sound. Information sat with me now. Not loud, not a scene, just a recalibration. She looked for approval. I set my coffee down and gave her a small nod that didn't carry permission. She felt the difference and adjusted her smile to the room. I stepped to the side bench and pulled my phone. I messaged my brother. "Who's Mark around here?" Typing dots, then a short reply. "District guy. I'll explain." "When?" "Come by tomorrow." Cookut. Small world. I put the phone away. She was already addressing a parent cluster, the envelope leading her hand. A volunteer asked if I needed a badge. I said I'm set. I watched her friends reposition around her and leave a lane open toward me that she didn't take. I didn't push in. I didn't pull her out. I let the board doors close on their schedule and kept the hallway. Tomorrow had a name and a place, and I was already on my way to it. My brother's yard was full. Grill smoke, plastic tables, kids cutting through legs. She walked in ahead of me and lifted the white envelope like a ticket. "Raffle winner," she told my sister-in-law, "first pick of dessert." Yesterday she hid it under her coat. Today it was a pass. My brother handed me tongs, then kept them. "You hear from Mark yet?" he said low. I said, "Mark who?" He looked over my shoulder at her. Sister-in-law stepped in, bright voice for the table. "Mark's on the district team now, small world. She'll light up." Heads turned without moving. I set down the burger buns. "Mark who?" I said again, to the group this time. My sister-in-law's smile held. "Old debate captain, big on policy. Helps everyone." She glanced at my wife. My wife answered before she finished. "We collaborate sometimes. It's all board stuff." She tucked the envelope under her arm and laughed like it was nothing. Two friends watched her hand, not her face. My brother flipped a burger and missed the sizzle. "Not a problem, just heads up," he said. The spatula hovered. The table quieted for a beat, then silverware suddenly got busy. She crossed to me at the cooler. "Close. You're making this weird," she said under the noise. I lifted the lid, ice cracked. "Friday's timeline," I said. She kept her chin high. "Trust me, all covered." Her grip on the envelope tightened, then loosened like she remembered. She waited for a reaction I didn't give. In the yard, my sister-in-law set down a new stack of plates near me instead of near her. My brother asked me to carve the watermelon. Small moves. People drifted into my reach for napkins and quick talk that stayed light. Two of her friends shifted back toward the cornhole set, eyes returning to her then away. She tried a reset with the crowd. Committee is swamped, she said. We split calendars, he's focused on work, it's perfect. A few nods, no follow-ups. The envelope edge peeked out against her dress like a badge. She didn't put it away. I carried the platter past her and let a lane open. She stepped half into it, then checked her phone and stepped back. Contradiction was simple. Midnight deliveries, secret like policy, now paraded as community. I didn't need to point. My brother wiped his hands on a towel and leaned close enough for me to hear, not them. If he stops by the place, you want me there? I said no. If he stops by, I'll answer the door. He nodded once. I set the platter down in the center of the table and chose a seat facing the gate. She clocked it and filled her cup. The game on the lawn restarted, but her gaze was pinned to the opening where arrivals funnel. I kept my hands clean and my schedule open. Saturday, the stairwell sounded like a market. Neighbors hauled paper bags past our door, quick nods, quick glances. He turned the corner like he owned the floor, crisp badge, white envelope in his hand. Mark said pick up for the forum, we're late. I kept the door open with my foot, said she's inside. She stepped out before I called her, lanyard on, hair pinned like a shift change. 2 minutes, she said, scanning him first, then the hall. The couple from 3C slowed. Her friend with the stroller stopped like she'd rehearsed this scene. He answered before she did when 3C asked, big night? Policy coordination, he said, gentle with the consonants. The stroller mom looked at me and then at his badge. The comparison wrote itself. I pointed to the envelope in his hand. She had tucked hers at dinner and called it a raffle. Same stamp now, policy meeting, different carrier. Contradiction walked down our hall wearing a lanyard. I said take our car, keys were in my palm already. Mark said we've got it. He didn't check with her. She didn't make him. She stepped to his side, took his pace, no pause. He started toward the elevator. The hallway shifted with him. Shoulders turned, conversations thinned. Shifting loyalties happen in small inches. Who holds the door? Whose name gets said first? She reached for the envelope to tuck it, and he kept it a beat too long, then gave it. I let that beat sit. Bring the envelope back with you, I said, low enough for her. She nodded fast, already moving. Not a promise, just noise. I left the door open and crossed to the console. The midnight delivery sat where I'd placed it, white and quiet, policy stamp matching his. The label said Mark, thank you, tucked inside, Ms. delivered to us. I slid it into my jacket and closed the flap. No commentary. Just order. At the elevator, the neighbor with the dog held the door and smiled at Mark like he'd seen him before. Familiarity without context. She introduced him with a title, not a last name. He shook hands like he'd done 3 already on this floor. She said we agreed on separate calendars, toss away to the air, as if it excused arrival at our door on his schedule. I didn't answer. Separate looks different when he has the envelope. 3C asked if I was coming. I said for a minute. The couple exchanged that look married people use when they inventory wins and losses belonging to other people. He pressed the lobby button. She watched my jacket without asking what I'd pocketed. She needed it to be nothing for now. In the elevator, he filled the silence with times and venues. Sounded like a bus route. She slotted into the gaps with yes and already sent and I'll lead outreach. He nodded like it was his decision. He didn't look at me. That was fine. I didn't look at him. We hit the lobby and the front desk waved. The overnight courier left another slip, scribbled midnight, wrong box again. The desk guy lifted it toward me, then saw Mark and angled like he knew him. I raised a hand and took it anyway, set it on the counter, kept my other envelope hidden. The desk guy's eyes bounced. He chose not to ask. Mark said we're cutting it close. She said he's happy to circle back later. I said I'll meet you there. 2 heads turned. Timing moved. They walked for the doors together, his stride set, hers set to his. People made space. I let the pause stay where it landed, then pushed through after them, the second envelope flat against my ribs. The foyer ran on clipboards and lanyards. She walked straight past the rope, lifted the white envelope like a pass, and the greeter waved her through. Mark tucked in at her shoulder. A few parents tracked the move, then looked at me. She stepped onto their little riser and set the envelope on the podium like it belonged there. She said we agreed on separate calendars. He's focused on work, I'll lead outreach. Her hand brushed my sleeve while she said separate. I said run it. A clean clap rolled the room. Side glances landed, then slid away. She added, Mark's our co-chair now. Thank him for carrying Friday. Mark gave a quick nod, chin high. The committee shifted toward their table. The floor captain angled chairs, left one gap where I would have sat. I didn't move. A volunteer slid me a card from behind the check-in sign, pen attached by tape. She said, if you're comfortable. I read the line with my name half-typed already. I printed the rest and tapped the pen back. She watched my hands like a metronome. She called back across the foyer, voice friendly, to grab coffee while I waited. Mark didn't turn. I said, I'm good. She held the smile 2 beats, then faced the room again. Contradiction hung where her hand had been. I walked the edge to the event chair, the older guy with the blue binder and too many badges. I kept it quiet. Midnight, wrong box again. I set the second white envelope on his binder. He turned it, saw Mark on the front, then the thank you inside. He looked at me instead of the ink. I said, it belongs with your list. He nodded once and slid it under the top sheet, not buried, not on display. The greeter called for final check-ins. A parent told another that seats were first come. Shifting loyalties started small and fast. The floor captain sent 2 volunteers back to their table, then one over toward me. I didn't fill the gap they gave. She took questions and rinsed them with pace. We aligned outreach across schools, she said. Thank you to our donors for jump-starting it. Her hand rested on the envelope like a seal. Mark stood behind her shoulder, half a head back, eyes down at his phone. I felt the volunteer hover. She whispered the chair wants to verify credentials at the desk, then flushed when she realized I heard the room around us. I said I'll be nearby. She nodded and left the path open. My wife glanced over, waiting for a reaction I didn't give. I let the pause stay where it landed, then stepped toward the check-in table and watched the chair pick up both envelopes. The chair turned both white envelopes over under the acrylic light, lips moving as she read names. She lifted her head and waved me in, voice low but carrying to the line. This credential code's to your donation, not Mark's. We'll correct the listing. I said no rush. My wife slid between us, committee lanyard forward. That's private, she said. The volunteer with the sharp froze mid-cap. 2 parents glanced up and stayed. The chair nodded once, then addressed the desk without lowering volume. Update the board. Credit goes here. Thank you for underwriting her outreach start. Pens moved. Someone clapped once by accident and stopped. Mark looked down at his badge, then at the floor. I didn't step closer. Listed as general support, I said. My wife answered fast. We agreed on separate calendars. I said you presented it that way. The chair scratched out a name beside Mark's and wrote mine cleanly. A volunteer slid their tables stacked 2 inches farther from the main line. She waited for a reaction I didn't give. I let the pause sit while I tucked the emptied white envelope flat into my jacket. Mark shifted like he meant to add context, then didn't. He said we'll regroup. I said run your agenda. A father with a stroller asked if everything was fine. I said steady. He nodded like he understood more than he did and rolled on. The committee lead drifted near, not touching, and told the check-in table to announce corrected credentials at the start. The air shifted around their side. Small gaps opened that weren't there 5 minutes ago. My wife tried for lightness. Misdeliveries happened, she said. We had a midnight mix-up. I said it landed here. The neighbor's hallway had heard that bell, and the volunteers had too now. Her preemptive story thinned in the quiet. The chair raised the second envelope slightly, the misdelivered one, then lowered it to the tray marked processed. We're square, she said to me, then to the desk. Note his name at brunch. I looked at the sign-up card angled toward donors and flipped the pen. Put me down, I said. Back row. The volunteer wrote, slow and careful. People reopened their distance from her table without noise. Mark adjusted his lanyard and took a step behind her shoulder, half a head back. I walked past them without changing pace and added my initials on the brunch board. Then I took the end seat by the aisle where I could watch the room reset. Brunch rolled in on metal carts. Chairs scraped, plates clinked, voices dropped into clusters. I kept the end seat by the aisle. The white envelope sat under my palm, flattened now. The committee lead took the chair beside me without asking. He angled in, public voice kept low. You kept this afloat, he said. I slid the envelope into the light, empty. Schedule's clear, I said. He nodded like we were already in a meeting. She came up behind him, hand on his chair back, eyes on me. It's complicated, she said to the space between us. He looked at her hand, then at me. Noted, he said, still to me. Contradiction landed quiet. Separate calendars in the foyer. Her hand here now. Across the room, her friends stopped mid-laugh when they saw us lying like that. One of them peeled off, set fruit near my elbow. You good? He asked. Steady, I said. He glanced at her, then found a seat at our side of the table. Mark stood by the door, badge turned backward. He checked his phone, checked the room, then told a volunteer he had to run ahead. No one followed. He walked out with his lanyard in his pocket. Chairs shifted closer to my aisle. The lead tapped his notepad. Operations needs a calm hand, he said. I kept my eyes on the sign-up board. Send it, I said. He didn't hide his smile. Her circle saw that before she did. She slid into the seat on my other side, close enough that her knee grazed mine. We agreed on separate lanes, she said, tone soft, aimed private in a public room. I let the knee rest against mine and kept my hands on the table. Run your lane, I said. He's asking you to step in, she said. He's asking me to steady, I said. The event chair paused by the coffee, announced thank yous, called names. He thanked me for the seed that covered Outreach Startup. A couple heads turned. A volunteer whispered to another, that was his. Her earlier framing thinned by degrees. I raised the empty envelope so only she saw it, and set it back down. No more midnights, I said. She exhaled through her nose and adjusted the lanyard she'd put on for brunch. A small movement, not for the room, for me. My brother texted a single line. Mark left fast. I slid the phone away without response. The lead asked if Monday worked. Monday works, I said. He said we'll put your name where it belongs. Her jaw tightened, then loosened. The loyalty map redrew itself in the silverware. Friends who laughed at dinner stood when I stood. They were out of line last night, one said. Noted, I said. They sat back down on my timing. Jokes died early and didn't restart. She reached for my arm, then stopped at the sleeve. We're square, she said. I kept my hand flat on the table. Schedule's clear, I said again, same tone. The lead took that as coordination. Plates arrived. People made room in front of me. She tried for a light comment to pull attention back. It landed short. I thanked the volunteer by name and shifted my chair an inch, opening the lane he needed. Mark texted a group and got no replies. He sent a second. Silence hung like a good coat. The chair announced a follow-up session and looked to me for a nod. I gave him one. She leaned in, a quiet reach for closeness. I let the pause stay where it landed. I nodded, didn't move.